GB News viewers is that they really, really love our country.
And they talk about us so proudly. We're on a journey together.
We are here for all of Britain. We believe in this country, we believe in its people, and we believe in all of the communities who live here.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Thursday, the 21st of May, live across the United Kingdom, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the cost of living crisis continues to bite, but this government has a plan.
Recognise that things are still tough for families, and that's why I'm announcing today that kids will travel for free on buses in England this summer.
Well, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, announces her Summer of Savings plan, making chocolate and biscuits cheaper too, but she had a tricky encounter with a white van man in Leeds.
I love our country, and one of the things about our country is good manners. Not very British. Right.
And are we finally going to get to grip with the sick note culture in Britain? Doctors are moving to getting Britons back on the job with mandatory to work plans instead of signing them off. There's going to be a pilot scheme where they don't have sick notes anymore.
And we're backing drivers by extending the freeze in fuel duty for the rest of the year.
Well, another U-turn. A planned increase in fuel duty has been scrapped as Kemi Badenoch takes fire at the government for lifting sanctions on fuel linked to Russian oil.
Can the Prime Minister explain why oil from Russia is acceptable, but oil from Aberdeen is not?
And finally, some single-sex guidance. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, who's also the Equalities Minister, will ban trans women from being in female-only spaces.
And big tech is being targeted. Britain's regulator demands tougher action from TikTok and YouTube to protect children online.
And Brits fighting back. Lindsay and Craig Foreman have started a new hunger strike after being jailed in Iran for more than 500 days. They were there on holiday, but they are there in prison on espionage charges.
Well, the fans go wild as Aston Villa win the Europa Cup, ending their 44-year wait for a European trophy. And the Prince of Wales was looking very happy.
So we're going to see a lot of Rachel Reeves today. She's going to be speaking to the Commons, doing lots of interviews about this stuff to help the cost of living crisis. And what we hear is that she's pushing hard, that she wants to keep her job if Andy Burnham becomes Labour leader and Prime Minister. She's got no chance. It'll be Ed Miliband.
Well, possibly, but I think the markets see her as a stable option,
Yeah.
so perhaps she has got a chance. But that footage of her being heckled yesterday at a petrol station, I actually think she handled it rather well, and I think she's right about manners. I mean, I don't care what your political disagreements are. Men should not be shouting at women in public. It's
No,
poor.
and it was just vile abuse. Actually, it wasn't constructive criticism. It was barroom not even barroom banter. It was certainly not the sort of language I'd have used in front of my mother, and I think that's a guide, really.
Yeah, well, if you can't be civilised, maybe think of another way of doing it. But nevertheless, it's gone viral, of course.
Of course,
and
it's
makes
gone
for good
viral.
telly.
It won't do her any harm because she does
True,
fight back
actually.
rather
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And anyway, so let us know what you think.
Least of her worries, I think.
Exactly. Let us know what you think. You can visit gbnews.com/you'll save. But first, we're going to get our 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you, 9:30. The headlines from the newsroom this hour. Rachel Reeves is setting out new measures today to ease the cost of living squeeze caused by the Iran war. Import tariffs on more than 100 products are being cut, while children in England will get free bus travel during August. MPs are calling again for a statutory ban on social media for children under 16. The Education Committee says online harms are widespread and severe, and tech companies cannot be trusted to regulate themselves. That comes as Ofcom is warning some major tech firms are still failing to protect children online. The regulator says TikTok and YouTube have not committed to significant changes to make children's personalised feeds safer. Britain is pledging up to £20 million to help contain an Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and now Uganda. Almost 600 suspected cases and 139 suspected deaths have been recorded. But UK health officials say the risk to the British public remains low. Unions are warning visa reforms could force migrant care workers to leave the UK. They say the changes risk worsening labour shortages in a social care system already under serious strain. Those are the latest headlines. For now, I'll be back with you for a full roundup at 10.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So we're going to hear a lot from the Chancellor today. She's going to put caps on essential food items like bread. After her food items plan for a cap on food, the supermarkets to cap items like bread, milk and eggs was mocked, frankly, by the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I think the question you have to think through in this sort of thing is, are you doing it for some, very sort of well-grounded, very temporary reason? I think if you start doing it as a matter of course, then you effectively, you're sort of artificially, moving prices relative to costs, and that's not a sustainable thing in the long run.
So he says it's not sustainable in the long run. Well, don't worry. The Chancellor has set out her summer of savings plan, which includes free bus travel for children and cheaper sweet treats.
Today, I'm announcing that bus fares for kids this summer, aged between 5 and 15, will be free. So in August, children in England can travel for free on the buses. And this is all about trying to help families with the cost of living. We recognise that things are tough. Inflation has come down, but I recognise that things are still tough for families. And so this summer, when travelling on the bus for kids, it will be free.
Just to put that in perspective, when she says this summer, it's August. It's from the month of August.
During the school holidays.
During the school holidays, yeah. Might have a view as to whether the taxpayer should be subsidising that, because that'll cost at least £100 million. However, the Chancellor isn't pleasing everybody. She was confronted by a heckler in her Leeds constituency in a white van. Take a listen.
I love our country, and one of the things about our country is good manners. Not very British. Right.
She stood her ground very well, I thought.
She did. I thought it was a good response. What else can she say?
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think she's been hopeless as Chancellor. She's made a lot of the biggest blunders in this government, from winter fuel, the failure to tackle the soaring benefits bill, all on her watch. National insurance going up, disastrous. Lowering the threshold on which it's paid, another disaster. And raising the minimum wage for the youngest kids has not helped do anything for youth unemployment. So she's made error after error. But still, I think people should be a bit more respectful.
Yeah, and good for her for standing her ground.
Yeah.
But like you say, I mean, the government came in with this plan for growth.
Yes.
All we needed was growth, which probably most people agree with, and yet they've proceeded to make all sorts of policy errors that have actually slashed growth.
We've got no growth. It's sluggish at best, sluggish to non-existent.
Well, to chat about this, we're joined by Alice Denby, who's the opinion and features editor at City AM. Alice, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know whether you heard our discussion just then, but Rachel Reeves does not seem to be making the right decisions for growth at the moment. Do you agree?
Yeah, look, I think Andrew set it out really well. I mean, talk about free bus travel for young people, and as you say, at the exact same time pushing up the minimum wage and making them all unemployed. Surely it would be better if they had the money to pay for their own bus fares. I mean, not 5-year-olds, obviously, but yeah, look, I think she's been a very unimpressive Chancellor, and frankly, this idea of capping food prices is economically illiterate. I can't believe anyone who's supposed to be an economist would do this. It reminds me of this famous anecdote of when Boris Yeltsin, the leader of the Soviet Union, visited America in 1989, and he went to a supermarket, and when he saw the abundance on the shelves compared to the bread queues you had back in the Soviet Union, it completely shattered his illusion of communism. Supermarkets are some of the most competitive businesses in the market. They operate at wafer-thin margins. The idea that Rachel Reeves is better at directing food prices than these business people is frankly insane, and she must know it.
Honestly, although this is quite an extreme example of government intervention, it's not just this government that has had this reflexive instinct to interfere when inflation takes hold or the cost of living goes up. I mean, we saw the last government pump billions, of course, into the furlough scheme, into summer holiday clubs, all these kind of things. Do you think actually all our politicians, all our political parties have fallen into this trap that when the economy starts to wobble, the answer is for the government to intervene?
You're right. It does seem extraordinary that we haven't learnt the lesson from Liz Truss. Of course, her biggest mistake wasn't cutting taxes. It was borrowing a huge amount of money to pay everybody's energy bills and then thinking that you could pay for all of that with tax cuts. And we seem to have not learnt this lesson. I do think you're right. I think some of this, has to do with COVID, with the idea that people got the idea that it was the government's job to protect everyone from every single risk in life. And I really think we need to get away with this. We know what you need for growth. You need lower taxes, less regulation, a smaller state. And I just don't see why we don't seem to be enacting that.
Do you think the public, the mood has shifted with ordinary folk, Alice? Do you think they now expect the government to make handouts? Because that's what she's doing today, whether it's free bus, cheaper, free school, free buses for kids in August, but also directly cutting the prices of some taxes on food. It's feeding into that idea again that the government will sort it out.
Yeah, look, I think for too long our politicians have been too afraid to be honest about the trade-offs involved, because of course people want free stuff from the government, right? But people also don't want to pay huge amounts of tax. We simply can't afford for the state to do everything that people demand of it. So I think that we do need to have more honesty about the trade-offs. But I mean, if you look at the sort of surging popularity of reform in the current local elections, they're not exactly shying away from a more interventionist style of government. So I'm not confident that we're going to see that sort of radical honesty that I think we need.
Well, one area you might support that Rachel Reeves has announced today is the cut in fuel duty, or rather cancelling the planned rise in fuel duty, which seems to be a kind of annual event now in our economics. Do you support that decision? Do you think she should go further?
Yeah, look, of course I support that decision. It would have been disastrous for people had this 5% tax rise gone ahead. But as you say, it's kind of Schrodinger's tax rise. Every year it's kind of threatened and every year it's frozen. So this isn't exactly a bold, innovative measure.
Now,
I just wonder as well if there's increasingly tension between the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, because she is saying, again, she spoke to Labour MPs last night. She had 60 MPs into the Treasury, or into number 11, and said the fall in inflation is down to my policies. Me, my, all that. Nothing to do with the government, i.e. nothing to do with the Prime Minister. And it was the Prime Minister who announced at the dispatch box yesterday the cut in fuel duty, in effectively stealing her thunder. I just think those two now are beginning... She obviously knows he's on the way out, so she's flexing her muscles.
Yeah, I agree. It does look that way. She is very fond of the personal pronoun. She states things in terms of her plan and my decisions. Look, she clearly recognises that Keir Starmer's on the way out, and she seems to be sort of pivoting left with these price caps and so on, perhaps trying to shore up her own position with whoever's going to come next, who is clearly also going to have, I think, a more left-wing agenda than Keir Starmer does. But she must know, I mean, if you see the bond market reactions to this, the bond markets think that she's the best that Labour has. You know, when she had that day when she kind of cried in the House of Commons and it looked like she might be in trouble, gilt yields spiked. So I think it's a mistake for her to be pivoting left in this way, because I think that her best hope is actually being the most fiscally prudent one that the Labour Party has.
Well, one of the leadership contenders, of course, is Wes Streeting, and he is splashed all over the papers today, calling for a wealth tax, specifically that if he was Prime Minister, he would equalise the rates of income tax and capital gains tax. He says capital gains tax is currently far too low. It's unfair on people who survive on earned income rather than unearned income. What do you make of that pledge?
Look, wealth taxes are terrible for growth. Everybody knows this. Capital gains tax is a bad tax because it stops people selling assets. It clogs up the market. People hold on to sort of old equipment that they could sell, and then they could modernise. So it's a bad tax. It's a populist measure. It's something you'd expect from the Green Party, not Wes Streeting, who's supposed to be a Blairite.
Yeah, I mean, they're all rushing to the left, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a mistake. I think that is them having been so hammered in these local elections, kind of going back into their comfort zone. But if you look at the local election results, which were, as you say, a smash and grab for reform, it's absolutely bizarre that they are saying, oh, well, let's rejoin the European Union when so many people are clearly voting for the man who was the face of Brexit. It's a bizarre strategy.
Alice, do you think there is an argument, though, potentially for equalising those two rates, not necessarily at the rates they currently are? Because one of the problems we've got in this country at the moment is that so many of our startups just sell off to American investors, for example, because capital gains tax is relatively low. It's better to pay a bit of capital gains tax now than continue to pay income tax and corporation tax for the entirety of the business's existence. Other countries like France and Germany have much closer rates of income and capital gains tax, and they don't have such a problem with foreign investors coming and buying all their new businesses.
Yeah, I mean, that's the argument for it. But I would say that the reason why so many people sell up and move to the US is because there's simply more capital there. And you would have more capital, and Britain would be a more attractive investment destination if our taxes and regulations were much lower.
Well, Alice Denby, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Alice Denby, the opinion and features editor at City AM.
Now, we've got some breaking news just coming in. The Office for National Statistics says net migration to the UK was an estimated 171,000 in the 12 months to December 2025. They say down 48% year on year, the lowest level since 2021. We'll get more on those figures with Mark White, our Home Security editor, who's brilliant at crunching through them and telling us what they really mean, not what the government wants you to think they mean.
It does seem an extraordinary fall on the headline number.
Yeah, and of course a lot of the reasons will be to do with things that, ironically, the last Tory government implemented right in the last moments in its
dying days,
which they should have done years earlier, frankly, years earlier.
Well, still ahead, today the government is going to publish its single-sex guidance. It will ban trans women in female toilets.
Up next, a planned increase in fuel duty has been scrapped. We'll have the details on the government's latest U-turn. But first, here's your forecast for some of our European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're heading away for this bank holiday weekend, well, there's plenty of sunshine across western areas of Europe. In the east, though, there are some thunderstorms as well as hail. But for the Canary Islands, plenty of sunshine, temperatures in the 20s. Similar story for Portugal, Spain, southern France as well as Italy. But as we head further east towards Greece and Turkey, that's where there's the risk of thunderstorms. There's hail in the mix with these showers as well. But it does look a bit drier into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's a Lancaster, the mightiest aerial engine of destruction ever conceived and built.
It's one of the most famous aircraft in the world. During World War II, Lancaster bombers filled the skies of Lincolnshire as they completed missions across Europe and further afield. Over the last few years, GB News has followed the Bomber County Gateway Trust and their mission to immortalise this iconic plane for centuries to come. 8 years after the idea was born, members of the public have been given a glimpse of the sculpture on Freedom's wings up close for the first time. GB News viewers helped raise thousands of pounds for the project, which was led by the Trust's chairman, Charlie White.
I'm really pleased. You know, it's been one of these things that, like I say, for the last 8 years we've been working on, and to sort of finally get it up and sort of here today, so sort of have a dedication for it. Yeah, it's so special. The idea when we sort of put it up here 8 years ago was that people could drive down the A side of the A46 and see it, and just make them smile. You know, welcome home to Lincolnshire, or welcome back into Nottinghamshire. We think it's it's an over £1 million project with sort of over £500,000 raised, sort of public donations and sponsorship. It's people that have come along and wanted to help. They have some connection with the military or the RAF, and they just wanted to be part of it.
The design is based on Lancaster VNN, which crashed on its return to RAF Swinderby in September 1942 after both portside engines failed. Weighing more than 100 tonnes and taller than the Angel of the North, this sculpture welcomes people into Bomber County. This site will officially open for visitors later in the summer, inspiring future generations and ensuring we don't forget the sacrifices of Bomber Command.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It is 10 to 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I'm trying to talk with this laptop. It keeps making a noise, and it's on mute, so I don't understand. But as you know, I don't do technology. Now, the planned 5p rides in field duty, which we knew was going to be scrapped, has now being scrapped in yet another U-turn.
Well, the government says the decision is linked to the war in Iran, with restrictions through the Strait of Hormuz still driving up fuel costs.
Well, we're going to talk to that doughty campaigner on this issue, Howard Cox, who is the founder of Fair Fuel UK. Howard, congratulations. Your pressure, as ever, wins another victory. Why didn't she just announce this months ago?
You're absolutely right, Andrew. We've been doing this for a long time, haven't we, mate? And it's been going, I've been doing this for 17 years, and this is still a sticking plaster on a massive cost of living crisis, and I just don't understand why. And, I'm delivering a petition today. You can see this massive tome here. I've got another 4 of these books to deliver to the Treasury. And frankly, there are 40 other countries have already cut fuel duty. Why haven't we? It's so easy just to say, we'll postpone it for 3 months and not put some tax up. That's not helping anyone at the moment. Drivers, truckers, delivery drivers, and even people going to hospitals and things like that are suffering terribly with the cost of these high costs. £2 a litre for diesel on average. It is ludicrous, and we're still the highest tax drivers in the world.
Now, Howard, it's obviously a great achievement, and motorists across the country will be delighted and very grateful to you. But could there also be a hidden cost to this? Every single year, when Chancellor set out their budget, they say they're going to increase fuel duty, and they use that rise to balance the books as far as the OBR are concerned. If they scrap that rise, the Chancellor then has to find that money somewhere else, either through tax cuts, tax raises or spending cuts. Are you worried that there will be far-reaching consequences of this change in policy?
Well, I've heard this argument for the last 17 years, Miriam, and you and I are on the same side of the sort of political argument. If you put more money into people's pockets, you get growth. And if you do that, the businesses actually can invest in new kit. You get inflation coming down, you get jobs being created, all these sorts of things. And people can, it's particularly the logistics industry, if they had more money, less fuel costs, they can invest in cleaner kit to reach that stupid net zero fantasy that they want to keep fighting for. The simple thing is this: put more money into people's pockets. That's what matters crisis at the moment. There's 37 million drivers, of which 80% have no choice but to use their vehicle to go to work, go to school, go to hospital, you name it, all those sorts of things. And we've got a clueless government. You know, I was proud to work with the Tory government for 14 years. They did a good job in keeping it frozen. In fact, it came down 10% in the time I was campaigning. We could have been sitting, if the fuel price escalator, Gordon Brown's fuel price escalator had been in place, we could be looking at prices at £2.50 for diesel and £2 for petrol now. So, you know, I'm grateful what they've done for this, postponing it for 3 months, but I'm sorry, as I said, it's a sticking plaster on the cost of living crisis.
Howard, do you think there is a bit of a London bias in the way that ministers look at this? Because if you live in London, you don't really need a car, or at least a lot of people don't. But elsewhere in the country, especially if you live in a town or village or more rurally, you absolutely need a car. Do you think possibly MPs and ministers just don't realise how essential driving is to most of the country?
Well, you're absolutely right, but I'm surprised Labour, who've won in a lot of rural seats in the last, they got a massive landslide victory, of which a lot of them were rural areas. And you think they'd be shouting at their bosses in 10 Downing Street and the Treasury to say, hang on a second, my constituents have no choice but to use their vehicle. So simply, you know, I don't see that argument anymore. But I do understand what you're saying. Most cities have a good public transport, especially London, except today I was half an hour late for coming to this interview because the bloody trains were late.
Well, and London is a car park, frankly, Howard, because the traffic is so slow, there's so many restrictions, so many cycle lanes, so many potholes. It's a nightmare getting around. I mean, I don't have a car. I haven't had a car in London for over 30 years. Nightmare.
Well, you're a sensible person. If I was living in the centre of London, I'd be probably on your same school of thought. But fundamentally, what matters to this country is that the transport, road user transport, is the centre of all commercial activity in this country. Every aspect of driving is a cost, and that cost dictates on what happens to the economy in terms, as I said earlier, jobs, inflation, and business investment. So, you know, I hope I can convince them to actually cut fuel because that's what we're asking for now, just like 40 other countries have done so already.
And is the Chancellor personally going to take the petition off you, Howard, or will you be handing it to a flunky?
I expect it'll be a flunky. We've asked for everything. I think there's about 7 or 8 Tory MPs joining me. I don't know. This is open to all parties because this is an apolitical protest. Because even Greens drive diesel vehicles. They need their veggie burgers delivered on the diesel. They've got no choice. But cut a long story short, I hope someone of a sense comes out and takes this petition. There's a lot of media coverage.
Good.
Howard Cox, Fairfield UK. Thank you so much. Well done. I expect you'll have to do the same again in a year, but it's a good achievement.
He's a great campaigner, isn't he? Howard Cox, he really is. He's brilliant.
It is a good point about London. I mean, the public transport here is absolutely incredible. I've never lived in London. Obviously, I've worked in London for a number of years now, and the difference between here and the rest of the country is just extraordinary. You can see why London grows and is prosperous.
Absolutely. Now, still ahead, are sick notes to be scrapped? We'll fill you in on why they could be replaced. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M18 northbound in Doncaster, a collision has closed 2 lanes, causing 40-minute delays, with conditions clearing by 11:45 a.m. In Norfolk, the A47 eastbound remains closed due to a serious crash, with traffic expected to clear shortly after noon. In Surrey, a broken-down vehicle is blocking 1 lane on the M25 anti-clockwise exit slip at Junction 6, clearance projected by 10:15 a.m. And on the trains, northern services between Doncaster and Scunthorpe and various southwestern railway routes face delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
There's a totally tax-free £76,543.21 in cash to be won. Cash to spend on anything you like. That's like having over £6,000 extra to spend each month for a whole year. You could spend it on a bucket list holiday, treats for all of the family, or just save it for a rainy day. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. save. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Thursday the 21st of May. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
The cost of living crisis continues to bite, but the government says, finally, it's got a bit of a plan.
I recognise that things are still tough for families, and that's why I'm announcing today that kids will travel for free on buses in England this summer.
Well, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, announces her summer of savings plan, making chocolate and biscuits cheaper too. But she had a tricky encounter with a white van man in Leeds.
I love our country, and one of the things about our country is good manners. Not very British. Right.
Well, fair play to fighting back. Now, net migration's at its lowest level since 2021, but are these figures positive for the government? We'll be crunching the numbers with our very own Home and Security editor, Mark White.
And GPs are to drop sick notes. Doctors move to get Brits back on the job with mandatory return to work plans instead of just signing them off.
And we're backing drivers by extending the freeze in fuel duty for the rest of the year.
So that is another U-turn. Planned increase in fuel duty scrapped as Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, aimed her fire at the government for lifting sanctions on fuel linked to Russian oil.
Can the Prime Minister explain why oil from Russia is acceptable, but oil from Aberdeen is not?
And single-sex guidance, finally, after a year, the Education Secretary and Equalities Minister, Bridget Phillipson, will ban trans women in female toilets.
Big Tech targeted Britain's regulator, demanding tougher action from TikTok and YouTube to protect children online. How many times have we heard this?
And back on track, this morning, the first Great British Railway branded train is unveiled in Brighton. But will it be more affordable? Will it show up on time? At least it looks.
What a pointless gimmick. Honestly, what people want are the trains to run on time, the staff to turn up, and actually maybe the fares to come down in price, because they are the most expensive in Europe.
It does look quite smart, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than some of the trains that were painted in the Pride Progress flag, for example. I prefer a Union Jack.
You know, you used to be able to buy the line down to Brighton and the south. You can't even buy a cup of tea on those trains anymore.
Really?
Scrap them all.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're filthy dirty.
Yeah, and so expensive. And you compare, well, we were talking about HS2, of course, yesterday, the massive over-budget costs of that. One of the papers this morning had a cost per mile of high-speed trains in other countries. And, of course, our HS2 is 5 or 6 times what it costs to build similar length of railways in France or Germany.
Somebody made the point, it's going to cost between 87 to 102 billion, although why we have this discrepancy?
Apparently it depends on the weather. That's what it said this morning, yeah.
And of
if
course,
it rains a lot, it costs more.
People have made the point that NASA sent the Artemis space mission, 77 billion. I mean, how can HS2 be more expensive?
Well, as one commentator put it this morning, HS2 would be a great plan for 10 billion. It's a terrible plan for 100 billion, and because the costs have just spiralled, I do think they should just scrap it now and just cut their losses.
Yeah, remember, it was launched in 2008, and we don't think it will be running trains on the line till 2039. That would mean 31 years. It's an embarrassment.
It is especially embarrassing given how quickly the Victorians built trains without any of the modern technology or machines that we have now. We could learn some lessons from them.
We certainly could.
Well, we'd love to know what you think about this and all the other topics we're discussing today. Send your views and comments to
gbnews.com/you'll say. But first, here's the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. Just gone 10 o'clock. The top story this morning. Rachel Reeves is setting out a package of measures aimed at easing the cost of living squeeze from the Iran war. The government will cut import tariffs on more than 100 products, expected to include items like biscuits, chocolate, dried fruit and nuts. Children aged 5 to 15 in England will also get free bus travel on participating local routes throughout August. But immediate help with rising energy bills is not expected. That's despite forecasts of a sharp rise in the price cap from July. Net migration to the UK has fallen sharply, dropping to 171,000 in the year to 2025. That is nearly half the level seen the year before, and a fall from the peak of 944,000 in the year to March 2023. The Office for National Statistics says the main reason is a 47% drop in non-EU nationals arriving for work-related reasons. Separate Home Office figures show asylum claims fell by 12% in the year to March, while the number of asylum seekers in hotels is down by around a third. But asylum claims remain more than double the level seen just before the pandemic. And we have had a statement in now from the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, on these figures. She says in that post on X, net migration down 82%. Down from a high of 944,000 under the Conservatives. Labour is restoring order and control to our borders. Ofcom is warning some major tech firms are still failing to take enough action to protect children online. The regulator says TikTok and YouTube have not committed to significant changes after being asked how they will make children's content feeds safer. New research suggests around 7 in 10 children aged between 11 and 17 have experienced harmful content online. Ofcom says it is prepared to use enforcement powers, including possible fines, if platforms fail to comply with online safety duties. Well, that comes as MPs are urging the government to again introduce a legal ban on social media for all children under the age of 16. The Education Committee says online harms affecting children are widespread, severe and systemic. It warns platforms cannot be left to self-regulate and says features like infinite scrolling, autoplay and private messaging can put children at risk. MPs also want tougher restrictions on addictive design features and stronger duties on tech companies to prioritise child safety. Unions are warning that visa reforms could push migrant care workers out of the UK and worsen the social care staffing crisis. The TUC says the sector had started to show signs of fragile recovery after years of recruitment and retention problems. But it's now warning new settlement rules could make life harder, more expensive and less secure for migrant workers. Unions say social care relies heavily on international staff and they're calling for an urgent rethink. Britain is pledging up to £20 million to help contain a serious Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and now in Uganda. That money will support frontline health workers, infection control and disease surveillance. That comes as authorities say almost 600 suspected cases and 139 suspected deaths have now been recorded. The World Health Organization has declared it a public health emergency of international concern, but say the risk of global spread at this stage remains low. And drivers are being warned to expect congestion on major routes over the bank holiday weekend. The RAC expects around 19 million trips by car between Friday and Monday. That's around more than 1 million over the last year figure. The worst delays are expected on the M1, M5, M6 and M25, with Friday and Saturday likely to be the busiest days. It comes despite the soaring fuel prices, with petrol and diesel significantly more expensive than before the Iran conflict began. Those are the 10 o'clock headlines. More news still to come here with Andrew and Miriam.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Text and emails coming in?
Yes, lots of comments about Rachel Reeves, of course, and that heckling video. That seems to have attracted more comments than her policy plans. Hazel says Reeves does not deserve to be sworn at whilst in a garage. I completely agree.
Yeah.
June says the man who shouted at Rachel from accounts was expressing the anger that the working people of this country feel at this government. And JD says, imagine if it had been Starmer or Lammy at the petrol station. I think that would have been better or worse. Or maybe he means, what if Starmer or Lammy was shouting at Reeves at the petrol station?
Yeah.
That would look rather disturbing.
Of course, politicians can be heckled, it's fine, but I just don't think it's acceptable to start using four-letter words.
I agree. And also...
And I think I'm a bit old-fashioned, but swearing at women.
No, I agree. And shall we just remind our viewers what happened? Let's watch it again.
I recognise that things are still tough for families, and that's why I'm announcing today that kids will travel for free on buses in England this summer.
Well, I think the heckle has been erased from that clip.
Yeah, that was the wrong clip. We'll see if we can find the right one.
But what she said about one of the things she loves about being British is our code of good manners. And I think she's got a point, because, of course, people are angry with the government, rightly so, about all sorts of things, cost of living, immigration. But actually, that anger stems from wanting to preserve our nation, being proud of our nation. Yeah. And one of the things that we should be proud of our nation for is a sense of public decorum, decency, being polite to people even if you disagree with them. And I think for a man to shout at a woman like that in public is just poor. And it is un-British. I think she's right.
Yeah,
there are better ways of expressing your frustration.
Oh, we've now got the right clip, so we'll just share it with you again. Here we go. This was Rachel Reeves yesterday. Oh, no, this morning. Was it yesterday? Yesterday.
I love our country, and one of the things about our country is good manners. Not very British. Right.
She was unfazed, wasn't she?
Yeah. Though, interestingly, Reform UK do not agree with our assessment of this, Andrew,
No.
and they want to meet the man who shouted at her and, I don't know, reward him in some way.
Well, it's politics, isn't it? That's their job.
True.
That's their job.
Now, we had an interesting afternoon yesterday, Andrew, didn't we?
We did.
After the show, we went to a fundraising lunch, and Andrew was extraordinarily popular because there was one of these charity auctions, and one of the lots was lunch with Andrew Pearce. There's all sorts of other things, a week in the Algarve, football tickets, and you went for rather a lot of money, Andrew, didn't you?
We've just checked. I went £50 shy of £2,000. I was amazed. I had no idea.
There's a picture of some of the different lots. Andrew was only beaten by a week in the south of France. Which leaves me wondering, Andrew, should I be paying to sit next to you this morning?
Well,
does a rich tea biscuit count?
Perhaps you don't realise there's a bill in the post.
Gosh, I'll be racking it up at 4 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. No, the rich teas will suffice. But anyway, it's always good to support good causes, and it was good fun.
It was fun, but you're very...
And Miriam and I did our first selfie together yesterday too.
Yeah, we got 20 metres out the building before you were accosted for a selfie, so there you go.
Yeah,
I sit in the presence of greatness.
Now, some breaking news coming in. The Office for National Statistics says net migration to the UK was an estimated 171,000 in the 12 months to December 2025, down 48% year on year, the lowest since 2021. Here he is, our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, who will have crunched through those numbers. Tell us what we should really take from them, Mark.
Well, what we've got is a continuing trend from changes that were brought into force by the Conservatives, changes that Labour have largely adopted and continued with. So, for instance, increasing the the salary limits for those that qualify to come across for visas, clamping down on the abuse, for instance, of the visa system around those coming supposedly to work in social care, who many of them never ever worked in social care. They used it as an excuse to get into the country and go off and work elsewhere. So we're seeing that. Also the changes as well to the likes of dependents that could be brought across by those who were, for instance, here on study visas. So all that has brought down continually the net migration figures to 171,000, down from 330,000 the previous year. So it is a significant fall. However, I mean, we are still way off what David Cameron promised all these years ago, net migration levels below the tens of thousands, so below 100,000.
And there's a report in some of the papers today, Mark, saying while these figures are coming down, people don't feel it. They don't believe it. They think migration is going up relentlessly. It is still going up, of course, but not as fast.
Yeah, because they're seeing things like the small boat crisis, where continually people are breaking into the UK through the English Channel route and are being housed in hotels. On that, I say positive news. I guess it's positive news, but not if you're in a house where, or in a street where a bunch of migrants have been put into a house of multiple occupation near you. But the number of people living in hotels has gone down significantly from about 30,000 to 20,000 now.
So it drops from
10,000. Well, in houses of multiple occupation, some have gone to the likes of the military camp at Crowborough. There's only about 500 there, or I think actually less than that, 350, 400 that are there, and maybe about 1,000 who are at Wethersfield in Essex as well. So in terms of the number of migrants who are not in hotels, the vast majority are in houses of multiple occupation or other dispersed accommodation, council houses and alike throughout the country. And that brings with it its own challenges, because these people, you know, have no supervision whatsoever. At least there is some supervision if they are in a hotel. And in that sense, you know, there's security around the hotel. People in the local community know where the migrant hotel is. If they're concerned, they can avoid that particular area. It's different if they come and they're living in a street near you and you have no say, really, of who might be, you know, half a dozen young men who might be in a street near you. Some other interesting figures I think that it's worth telling you about in terms of the small boat migrants coming across. We're told that some just under 3,000 small boat migrants were deported in the last year. That was a rise of about 17%. Much of that was actually...
How did you say were deported?
Under 3,000.
Under 3,000.
Yeah.
It's minuscule, isn't it?
Well, it is. And actually, since the whole of the crisis began, it's about 8,000 or so, 8,500 since the crisis began in 2018. And so you have now, because we reported on it on the day of the election, the local elections, more than 200,000 have crossed the English Channel. So my back of a fag packet calculations tell me that's less than 5% of those who have come across the English Channel since 2018 have ever been returned. And they are the low-hanging fruit. 53% of those who were deported in the last year were Albanians. Well, it's kind of easy to prove that someone from Albania, where lots of Brits go on holiday, probably isn't fleeing any kind of war zone or persecution. Despite that, these people have put up some kind of a fight, because actually we haven't seen many Albanians at all on small boats over the last couple of years. So they've obviously been here and they've been trying to resist attempts to get them back across the Channel. Well, 53% of them have now gone, according to that latest figure of those being returned.
So that means about 192,000 of the 200,000 are still here.
Yes. Absolutely, and they're in a system, because you still got the system whereby, you know, if you're from Afghanistan or Syria, it's very difficult to return you to these countries, even if they decide that you don't have reason for asylum, that your asylum claim should be rejected. Any lawyer is going to be able to argue before an immigration judge that going back to that country where it's unstable, to say the very least, is potentially putting your life at risk. So that's what the British government is up against when it faces constant legal challenges, which is why they're trying to change the interpretation of the European Convention on Human Rights so that it is more in the favour of nation states in trying to determine what is actually a risk to life and limb.
Mark White, thank you very much for that analysis.
Now it's time for the great British giveaway. You know what it is. It's your chance to have a spectacular summer with £76,543.21. Here's how you do it.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. Imagine all the things you could do with that cash. Give the garden a glow up, max out on a new motor, or just make sure the coming year is your year. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny for a chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash. Text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up next, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves announces her Summer of Savings plan, making chocolate and biscuits cheaper, that's good for us, Andrew, and free bus travel for children this summer.
Yeah, but we don't eat chocolate.
Yeah, we do eat biscuits.
We do. We're going to be going through that and more with our panellists today, the formidable Cara Malone and the long-suffering Nigel Nelson.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 22 minutes past 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And we've got a panel with us, broadcaster Karen Malone and our senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Now, Malone, finally today, Bridget Phillipson, who's not just Education Secretary, taking...
Equalities and Women's
She's
Minister.
Equalities and Women, when she's not whacking VAT on our private schools, putting 65,000 kids out of school, state sector. But we're going to get her decree finally on the back of the Supreme Court ruling that trans women can keep out of women-only spaces.
This guidance, as we're told it's called, is a long time coming. The Supreme Court ruling was more than a year ago, and Phillipson has had a full year. What she's done, it's almost like she didn't want to take heed of the law. It's almost like her and the Labour government wanted to ignore the law, wanted to make it go away. And what they've done with that, they have caused chaos in institutions everywhere, in businesses, in hospitals, in prisons, because no one knows who can go into what toilet or who can go into what space. And because she hasn't come out with a guidance, which has been around for a long time, there has been chaos. Now, it is interesting that in the light of Andy Burnham's comments that were revealed from 2022, where he had said, he criticised the trans thing, and he said that trans women should be able to go into women's toilets. It's caused chaos now. And it strikes me that the Labour government is moving quite quickly now, because they know that they can score points with the opposition. So, yeah, it is a long time in coming. You know, we've seen what's happened with the Darlington nurses and the trauma that all these women have been through, and because the government couldn't come out with its guidance. And, you know, the Supreme Court, after all, just reinforced the law that was already in place. So it shouldn't have taken a big thing. No. It's, you know, Burnham said in his 2022 talk to this youth movement, he actually said that... It caused chaos, not knowing what... No, it hasn't. What's caused chaos is the indecision. And it's quite simple. Blokes don't go into women's spaces. It's that simple.
It's funny, we talked earlier in the week, Nigel, about how the Royal College of Nursing on their headquarters is flying the trans flag, which I think is an incredibly provocative thing to do.
Was it provocative?
Well, why would you?
Well, why not?
Why not fly
a
flag for disabled people? Why not fly a flag
absolutely. I mean, if there is a flag for the disabled, fly that.
Don't you think it was them saying to the Supreme Court, couldn't care less?
Well, I'm not sure that's actually true, and they may well be championing trans rights, which is a matter for them. I mean, on the bit about delay, what has been happening is... More than a year. But the Supreme Court came out with a ruling which was long overdue to just have the ruling, so we actually knew that a woman meant a biological woman and sex meant biological sex.
That's what the Equalities Act said anyway. All they were doing, that's what the Equalities Act said anyway. All they were doing was reinforcing.
Well, they're interpreting that, so it was interpreted in equalities law, which was good. And then the next stage, obviously, is that the practicalities of that are actually quite involved. I mean, it means companies changing their toilets, if they want to go for unisex toilets or gender-neutral toilets. And the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, since then, has been drawing up the guidance that Bridget Phillipson is now announcing, and the reason for the delays is she kept going back to them to actually make a few changes.
Did it feel like that?
13 months, come on, Nigel, it shouldn't have taken.
Do you think the problem is, Nigel, that these institutions are now so afraid of legal challenge that before they changed their rules or their policy, they wanted to make sure there was this guidance in place so that any defence they had to make was watertight?
Well, I'm sure of it, yeah. I mean, my attitude, and I know you disagree with it, is that somebody has every right to change their gender, but women's and be a woman. A man can be a woman for official purposes. However, I also think that women-only spaces must be protected, which is why.
You can't have it both ways.
Yes, you can.
Of
course you can.
Maybe just talked about institutions being scared.
Gender and sex are different.
institutions like the NHS are in thrall to trans activists. They don't want to heed
the Royal
Supreme
College of
Court.
Nursing.
Hence the Royal College of Nursing. They don't want to heed this ruling, and they are disobeying the law as it stands right now because they are telling people, they are telling trans women, you can go into women's toilets. They're just disobeying the law.
This is also quite important for people who work in retail, for instance. They need support now because it's so difficult if you're in John Lewis or and a clearly trans woman is trying to go into a change room. They can now say, there can even be a sign there saying, quite clearly, you're not permitted.
That's right,
and
yes.
It makes it
and that's right, and that's absolutely right.
Our services.
Which is why the Supreme Court ruling was so important, because you wanted to give people the backing to be able to say that. So you've got the nurse up in Scotland who was disciplined for objecting to a trans doctor being in her changing room. Now she is protected, and I think that is right. I mean, all the way through, I've always said that women-only spaces must be protected.
But it's ridiculous we ever had to get to the stage with the Supreme Court, because the Equalities Act was absolutely clear. And the reason that the waters were muddied was because trans activists twisted that and said if you were a trans woman, you were a woman, and therefore they decided that trans women could use women's spaces. It shouldn't have needed a Supreme Court ruling. It was clear to start with. And anyone with half a brain should understand and accept the fact that women's safety is paramount.
Yes.
And, you know, it's interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
I was actually doing some research this week that of all the trans people in prison, 74% of them are sex offenders. Now, women, on the basis of those figures, women have every right to be afraid and to have their safe spaces.
Interesting. That's an interesting figure.
I do think there is a genuine problem here now, which is that before the trans political movement, before there was such a belief that you could be born in the wrong body or change your gender, which was never a thing before 20 years ago, 15 years ago, then toilets policed themselves. Men would not try to go into women's changing rooms, and if they did, other men would stop them. You don't need policemen, it's just a societal norm. The problem is we just can't go back to that point, and I do think that is why retailers have a problem, because even if the guidance changes, even if it's watertight, we're now going to have this suspicion. And what happens if a woman who looks masculine, who's tall and got broad shoulders, walks into a women's changing room? Who's going to say to her, hang on a minute, are you actually a woman? I mean, we just cannot go back to this culture of just understanding that there are two sexes and everybody pleases itself.
It worries me, actually, because I fear violence, I fear confrontation.
And I fear people being humiliated when they shouldn't be.
And I fear that kind of confrontation is frightening for women. I mean, there was a trans woman on Twitter recently who said that he'd brazenly gone into women's toilets and they hadn't caused a fuss. Well, they hadn't, because he was 6'4" and he looked terrifying. So, of course, you're not going to cause a fuss with a person like that.
But you do have the law on your side now. I mean,
the
take your point.
This shouldn't be a matter of law.
Yes.
This should be a matter of culture and society and social norms. And we cannot have a policeman on every toilet. Of course not. The laws on single-sex spaces, the rules on single-sex spaces only work if every member of the public enforces them. And there's this expectation that if a man tries to invade a female space, other men will stop him. But now they won't stop him because they think, oh, is he a woman in law? Has he got the gender recognition certificate? Unfortunately, we've kind of, we've lost that Chesterton's fence. There's no going back.
But a gender recognition certificate would not be enough to allow you to go into a woman's toilet now.
No, it shouldn't be. But what I'm saying is people are now afraid to challenge other people because they think our crazy laws might be on their side, rather than common sense.
I think some women would be afraid to challenge. I mean, I certainly wouldn't.
Well, women shouldn't, in general, challenge strange men, but other men should.
But I think the women who are frightened to challenge have good reason to be afraid, because some of these trans activists get very aggressive about their beliefs. And if you don't believe what they believe, then you're a transphobe. It means you hate them. And no, you don't. You just want your space.
But do you believe that people have the right to change their gender?
No, not really.
No, neither do I.
You don't think they have the right to do that?
Right, it can't be done. It's that simple.
No, hang on. They can't change their sex.
What they like about themselves, but the fact is that you are male or female. Gender is something that's just made up. Who knows what it feels like to be a woman? I only know what it feels like to be me. I've never
what you
been
would do is
anybody else.
the Gender Recognition Act, which allows you to...
I think it was a massive mistake, because
so
the law should be based in truth and fact. Absolutely. And that was departure from that.
So you should not be able to change your birth certificate or your passport as you are at the moment.
I really like France. Do you know what? I would have loved to have been born in Bordeaux. I can't change my birth certificate that says I was born in Bordeaux, born in Sheffield. Can't rewrite history.
It's an ideology. It's an unproven, unscientific...
Or a human right.
...ideology. No, you've got a human right to be a dog, have you? You've got a human right to be a horse. It's just silly. And
I think we'll keep it the same species, actually.
Interesting, lots of people do identify as those things, which is kind of bizarre.
We do have to... And I know what a lot of people are thinking, maybe when Phillipson's published this guidance, we can move on, because so many people think, how is so much public discourse revolving around this issue of trans, who are such a tiny minority?
Yes, that's right. I think that it's been well over talked about.
Well, they should have gone on with this a lot quicker.
You know, do you remember Sharon Davis was on this very station not too long ago saying that Phillipson is an absolute disgrace, an utter disgrace to all women because
Sharon Davis is great. We love her. We love her.
Yeah, we do.
Well, thanks all. Well done, guys. We're going to move on now to our 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. Just after 10:30, the headlines this hour. Net migration to the UK has fallen to 171,000, the lowest level since 2021. New figures show the total has almost halved in a year, driven mainly by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work. Separate Home Office figures show the number of asylum seekers housed in hotels has also fallen to just under 21,000. That's down by around a third, but asylum claims, well, they remain more than double the level since just before the pandemic. Rachel Reeves is due to set out new measures to ease the cost of living squeeze caused by the Iran war. Import tariffs on more than 100 products are being cut, while children in England will get free bus travel during August. MPs are calling for a statutory ban on social media for children under 16. The Education Committee says online harms are widespread and severe. The tech companies cannot be trusted to regulate themselves, they say. That comes as Ofcom is warning some major tech firms are still failing to protect children online. The regulator says TikTok and YouTube have not committed to significant changes to make children's personalised feeds any safer. Those are the latest headlines. Full roundup of all the headlines at 11.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Up next, Lindsay and Craig Fulmer start a new hunger strike. They've been in prison in Iran now for more than 500 days on spying charges. Their son joins us shortly. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain and cloud across northern areas through today. We'll feel warm wherever you are, but particularly in the south where there will be a bit more sunshine. And there's more of that sunshine to come as we head towards the bank holiday weekend. We've still got this weather front, though, pushing up to the north and east through this afternoon. Outbreaks of rain, relatively light, but there will be quite a lot of cloud around with this weather front as well. When further rain pushes up towards Ireland, Northern Ireland, up through Irish Sea coast, there'll be a lot of cloud this afternoon. In the south and east, it will feel quite warm in the sunshine, temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s. And those temperatures will only rise over the next few days. Now, through this evening, that rain continues to push up across more northwestern areas, so there's still going to be quite a lot of cloud around, particularly across western coast. I think the east will see some clearer spells, but a risk of the odd burst of showery rain. Quite mild wherever you are this evening. 16 or 15 degrees for many northern areas. Still in the 20s, though, as we look further south, where there'll be some late evening sunshine with high pressure starting to build in for many central and southern areas of the UK as those weather fronts push further and further north. So it will become more widely drier as we head into Friday. Still, as I mentioned, quite a lot of cloud up through Irish Sea coast, so a bit of a murky start for some western coasts. Across the east, though, a clear and dry start to the day. Temperatures in the mid-teens for many of us to start the day as well. So a pretty mild night to come Thursday night into Friday morning. Now, the sunshine continues for many central and eastern areas through Friday. In the west, there will be a bit more cloud. I think it will still feel quite bright, actually, though, across parts of Wales and the southwest. And that rain, after a damper start to the day, it does turn drier across far northern areas, but still cooler than elsewhere across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland, but 28 degrees in the southeast.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. On the M18 northbound near Doncaster, an accident has closed 2 of 3 lanes, causing 40-minute delays. On the M1 southbound in Nottinghamshire, 1 of 4 lanes is closed due to a crash, expected to clear by 11:15 this morning. Elsewhere, the A47 eastbound in Norfolk is fully closed due to an incident. In Kent, 1 lane is closed on the A2 westbound entry slip from the A289 due to a collision. And on the trains, there is disruption on northern services between Doncaster and Scunthorpe and some southwestern railway routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 22 minutes to 11 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Lindsay and Craig Foreman, you will recall, were detained in Iran in January 25. They were on a round-the-world motorcycle trip and they've now been sentenced to 10 years for espionage last year, which they deny.
Well, yesterday, friends and family of Lindsay and Craig rode from Kensington Palace to Parliament Square to mark 500 days since the couple were first detained.
Now, their son, Joe Bennett, joins us now. Joe, you don't know how they're on hunger strike. You don't know how they're doing because no contact, presumably.
No contact. Last time I spoke to my mum was Bank Holiday Monday. At that point, she was very low. She'd just come off a call with the ambassador. And the language that was used on that call to her was just completely defeatist, that there's no avenues to explore, that they can't find a solution, basically buckle in for the long haul, which is really, really hard to understand when you look at other countries and their willingness to stand up for their citizens. And ultimately, if you look at the French case, they got them home, even amidst all the war and everything else that was going on. So it's a deeply stressing time. My understanding is Craig's 2 weeks into a hunger strike and my mum joined him on Monday. So we're getting to the point now where it's going to start to get dangerous, and I've tried to make the point to the government that if there isn't action off the back of this, then they could have 2 innocent fatalities on their hand.
And you don't think they're doing enough, if anything at all?
Well, it's the language that they use. For example, when they spoke, Hugo spoke to my mum on the phone, and in that call, Hugo Short is the ambassador.
OK.
Spoke to my mum on the phone and essentially was saying that, you know, there's no clear channel of communication, we can't find a solution, essentially buckle in for the long haul, which, using that language to people who need to hear hope is a form of abuse. It's simple as that, right? She came off the call, she was completely deflated. All it needs is to say, look, we understand that the situation's really difficult. What we're going to do is explore all avenues and fight relentlessly until we find a solution to get you home. That's saying the same thing, that it's a difficult situation, but it's just giving them that glimmer of hope, which they need desperately. The problem that we've got is, you know, I've told them that they're on hunger strike and there is still this inertia within the government to not do anything. It seems as though they're sitting on their hands waiting for a solution to come to them. So it's deeply, deeply frustrating.
Now, I read somewhere, Joe, that one of the problems is that the government has not yet designated them as unlawfully detained. I can't remember the exact language. If they were to do that, would that give them additional powers in order to help to bring them home?
Yeah, you're right. They called it unjustifiable. Unjustifiable. We've been pushing since quite early on to call it arbitrary detention because it ticks every box. And what that does then is it unlocks levers. They have to find actively a solution to the problem. They're reluctant in saying so. There's multiple broken promises from Yvette Cooper, from, you know, the powers that be. Some things are simple, like that they said that they'd raise it on every call they can with their Iranian counterparts. And we got told about a week after that promise was made that they had a call with an Iranian counterpart, but the tone wasn't right, so they didn't mention their names. And I just thought, well, the tone's probably not ever going to be right, or it might be awkward.
Do they get to talk to each other much?
They used to. They haven't at the moment, from our understanding. They've got no contact at all. Their privileges have been completely revoked. And I know throughout the time when we have daily contact, when it was a couple of days where we couldn't talk through the war and it was intermittent, I know the impact it had on them, and I know the impact it had on us. we've got a support network out here.
Yeah.
They are isolated and on their own. They've got nobody, absolutely nobody. And those calls are the biggest lifeline for them because it's a glimpse into normality.
And what is prison like for them? Are they in a single cell or are they sharing cells?
So they're sharing cells. They were in solitary confinement for 60 days at the beginning of all of this, and then they share cells. So Craig's in triple bunk beds. He's got about 15 other men, but there's about 1,500 people in his salon, and it's busy. And then you've got my mum who's in with women. She's in double bunk beds. She's sharing a room with 18 other women. So it's cramped. It's unsanitary. It's a rough place to be. It's a really, really rough place to be. And I can't probably do it any justice because, they're living and breathing it.
And Joe, how have the French managed to get their people out? What did they do differently?
I don't think we'll ever know the source of how they got them out, but what I did see is the way that they championed for their citizens, right? They stood up and fought for what's right, and that's all I'm asking the government to do. I'm not expecting that if they come out and publicly defend them that they're going to get them home tomorrow, but what it shows is unity, and that's what we're missing at the moment, is we feel we're fighting a war on two fronts. We're fighting a war to get them home from Iran, but we're fighting a war to get our own government to stand up and care. And it's like, even though this apparent self-sabotaging is going on within the government at the moment, it's in disarray, and there's no doubt about it, that doesn't abolish their responsibility to UK citizens. And I'm selfishly speaking about my parents, but this could affect anybody, any UK citizen. So there's disarray in Parliament, but things like this can't slip through the cracks, and that's why I need Yvette Cooper to stand up. I need Keir Starmer. I mean, he's never said their name, but they need to stand up in times like this because I get that they're in a tricky situation. They don't know where they're going to be.
And is your parents' local MP involved as well?
Massively, yeah. So he's been really supportive, Tony Vaughan. We're in Parliament later for an adjournment, so we've got 30-minute slot to, put some questions, get some things on record, which we're really proud of because it shows that we're making some progress. But what we have to hope is that all of these avenues of pressure that we're trying to accumulate eventually move the dial in the right direction.
And what difference has the war made to your campaign?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it didn't make it more difficult, I suppose. You've got to be very careful where you're treading and what you're saying. I'd also be lying if I didn't think that there might have been a solution within all of that, right? So it's difficult. You try and find solutions in everything that goes on. But, we thought that maybe if the UK were on the periphery and didn't get heavily involved, that actually might be beneficial and they might be able to get in. But as I say, there just doesn't seem to be this desire to want to fight, and that's hard for us and it's hard for them.
And the debate in the Commons said that is that Tony Vaughan?
Yeah,
the local
Tony
MP.
Vaughan to the Foreign Office.
And the Foreign Office Minister will have to respond and tell us exactly what the Foreign Office is doing to try and get your parents out.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. It's the first time that, this is 30-minute slot. It's specialised where we can be very specific with what we want to ask and what we need answering.
And would your parents know yet that that's happening?
No.
Well, when you do get to talk to...
Yeah. I've tried to pass on a message. I've told, the sources that we've got to get information to them. It's very, very difficult to do so. So they may know. I don't know for a fact, but hopefully we can tell them soon that some good's come of it.
And will you be watching from the public gallery in the Commons?
Yeah, I'll be looking him dead in the eye.
No throwing eggs.
Yeah, no, I won't. I've got no eggs on me.
Well, Joe Bennett, thank you so much for coming on again.
And
of course,
best of luck with
absolutely.
our best wishes to you and your family.
Thank you very much.
The Foreign Office says it will keep working to get them safely back to the UK, calling their incarceration appalling and unjustified.
Well, coming up next on Britain's Newsroom, this morning, the first Great British Railway branded train is going to be unveiled in Brighton. Will it make the trains run on time, though, Andrew?
I doubt it. First, though, here's the forecast of some European holiday sun.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're heading away for this bank holiday weekend, well, there's plenty of sunshine across western areas of Europe. In the east, though, there are some thunderstorms as well as hail. But for the Canary Islands, plenty of sunshine, temperatures in the 20s. Similar story for Portugal, Spain, southern France, as well as Italy. But as we head further east towards Greece and Turkey, that's where there's the risk of thunderstorms. There's hail in the mix with these showers as well. But it does look a bit drier into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Colin, it's always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And of course, you're wearing your full Chelsea pensioner regalia. It's a resplendent sight. Colin Thackeray. 2/3 of young people don't even know what VE Day is. You know what it is. You lived through it. Tell us, tell the nation how important it is and your memories of that beautiful day.
Well, extremely important to remember and to continue to remember. It means obviously victory in Europe. And it was a great day because everybody was happy and, you know, we all lived through 5 years of war, and it was a smashing time. And I'd rather hope that people will continue to do so.
Do you think the problem now, Colin, is we've got a younger generation who are taught badly, and they're taught often to be ashamed of British history? We talk about slavery, the evils of empire, yet we don't celebrate the genuine heroism of V-Day and people like yourself.
Yeah, it's a shame. You know, 2 years ago we were in Korea. We went across for a revisit, and I hadn't seen the place for 70 years, and it was extraordinary. The place the school was built up, and the people were marvellous. And every child knows exactly when the war was there, what we were there for, and we were told. I was told by a 9-year-old, it never occurred to me that, look, if you didn't come, we would be living the same as North Korea. That's a shame, isn't it?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
Practice Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 10 to 11.
Net migration to the UK dropped below 200,000. Primaries has tweeted it's fallen 82%. I thought it had fallen 48%.
Maybe it's 82% since the last year under the Conservatives. I think that could possibly be true. But anyway, the Prime Minister says, I promise to restore control to our borders. My government is delivering. I know there's more to do. We're introducing a skills-based migration system that rewards contribution and ends our reliance on cheap overseas workers.
Let's talk to GB News Home Security editor Mark White, who knows what's really going on. Mark, they've got these reduction, which is largely based on what was going on with from the last Tory government.
Yeah.
You say there's some really interesting developments now, what's happening across the Channel.
Yeah, with illegal migration, just first on that point of the 82%, what the Prime Minister is alluding to is that all-time high net migration figure of 994,000 a few years back. It's come down now by 82% if you look at that. But that is because of changes that were implemented by the last Conservative government to raise the salary threshold for a number of jobs that you qualify for visa for, and to also restrict the number of dependents coming over for the likes of students who are studying here. So that's all having an effect. That's why we're seeing it continuing to fall year after year. But the really interesting development, and we've been speaking about this for a number of weeks on our channel, is the move now from France up to Belgium of small boat departures. The Belgian police are becoming increasingly concerned about this. They say that the migrants are using violence against their officers. They are employing ex-soldiers from countries such as Afghanistan and Iraq who are there to sort of enforce the small boat departures.
Like mercenaries.
And are being violent towards the police who are trying to intervene and stop them. And if I tell you about, just an example of how the number of departures from Belgium has increased very, very significantly this year. On any average year, 1 or 2 launches are reported from beaches in Belgium. It's not something people smugglers have been interested in doing. It's further up the coast, therefore the boats are longer in the water, so it's a more difficult journey. But because the French have been sort of increasing their patrols on a number of French beaches, particularly around the Dunkirk and Calais area, it's forced small boat migrants to go much further down beyond Boulogne, further south on the west coast of France, and then up into Belgium, and increasingly 33 launches so far this year compared to an average normally of 1 or 2 boats that are launched. 33 boat launches. We're expecting a weekend of very significant numbers crossing. All eyes on Belgium to see how many will launch from there.
Mark, thank you very much.
Now, the Green Party's announced that Chris Kennedy has been elected as chosen as its candidate for the upcoming Makerville by-election. It takes place on June the 18th, following the resignation of the Labour MP Josh Simons. The other candidates out so far are
Andy Burnham for the Labour Party, Andy Lord Hope for the official Monster Raving Loony Party, Robert Kenyon for Reform UK, Rebecca Shepherd for Restore Britain, and Michael Winstanley for the Conservative Party.
Plenty more to come. We're going to get some cheap biscuits and chocolates, apparently, according to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. We'll be updating you on all of that. This is Britain's Newsroom. Mary's got her biscuits.
Got the biscuits already.
Just them up. Just need a cup of tea, that's all. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
That was Mark White. He's gone to get his biscuits.
Exactly.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain and cloud across northern areas through today. We'll feel warm wherever you are, but particularly in the south where there will be a bit more sunshine. And there's more of that sunshine to come as we head towards the bank holiday weekend. We've still got this weather front, though, pushing up to the north and east through this afternoon. Outbreaks of rain, relatively light, but there will be quite a lot of cloud around with this weather front as well. When further rain pushes up towards Ireland, Northern Ireland, up through Irish Sea coast, there'll be a lot of cloud this afternoon. In the south and east, it will feel quite warm in the sunshine, temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s, and those temperatures will only rise over the next few days. Now, through this evening, that rain continues to push up across more northwestern areas, so there's still going to be quite a lot of cloud around, particularly across western coast. I think the east will see some clearer spells, but a risk of the odd burst of showery rain. Quite mild wherever you are this evening. 16 or 15 degrees for many northern areas, still in the 20s though as we look further south, where there'll be some late evening sunshine with high pressures starting to build in for many central and southern areas of the UK as those weather fronts push further and further north. So it will become more widely drier as we head into Friday. Still, as I mentioned, quite a lot of cloud up through Irish Sea coast, so a bit of a murky start for some western coasts. Across the east, though, a clear and dry start to the day. Temperatures in the mid-teens for many of us to start the day as well. So a pretty mild night to come Thursday night into Friday morning. Now, the sunshine continues for many central and eastern areas through Friday. In the west, there will be a bit more cloud. I think it will still feel quite bright, actually, though, across parts of Wales and the southwest. And that rain, after a damper start to the day, it does turn drier across far northern areas, but still cooler than elsewhere across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland, but 28 degrees in the southeast.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
No illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
And it's 11 o'clock on Thursday, the 21st of May, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the cost of living crisis continues to bite, and the country calls for a big solution.
I recognise that things are still tough for families, and that's why I'm announcing today that kids will travel for free on buses in England this summer.
Your PR. Chancellor Rachel Reeves announces her summer of savings plan, making chocolates and biscuits cheaper too. But she had a tricky encounter with a white van man in Leeds who's no fan.
I love our country, and one of the things about our country is good manners. Not very British. Right.
Rachel Reeves fights back with a plan for summer savings for all, but will she be Chancellor by Christmas if Keir Starmer is replaced?
And breaking news this morning, net migration is at its lowest level since 2021. But the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, says there's more to do.
And will GPs finally drop the sick note culture? Doctors are moving to get Brits back on the job with mandatory return to work plans instead of signing them off. It's all being done in a pilot scheme.
And big tech is being targeted. Britain's regulator demands tougher action from TikTok and YouTube to protect children online.
And finally, single-sex guidance from the Education Secretary, who is also the Equalities Minister, Bridget Phillipson, who is to ban trans women in female spaces.
Sandra, it was over a year ago since the Supreme Court ruled that sex means biological sex in law, and it's taken a year to get the guidance out to public bodies.
Because there's a lot of resistance. A lot of left-wing MPs in particular just did not accept the Supreme Court ruling, even though it is the highest court in the land. And I think a lot of this has been political juggling and jostling, and it's long overdue.
Yeah, and Phillipson has said that the reason it's taken so long is she wants to make sure it's focused on single-sex spaces rather than keeping trans women out of women's facilities. But aren't the two things the same thing? It's just a matter of semantics, just virtue signalling.
I don't get the difference. And I think it's really important because we were talking about if you're working in a shop, for instance, and a trans woman wants to go in a woman's changing room, you've now got proper guidance from the law. Tell us what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. Just gone 11 o'clock. The top story this morning. Rachel Reeves is setting out a package of measures aimed at easing the cost of living squeeze from the Iran war. The government will cut import tariffs on more than 100 products, expected to include items like biscuits, chocolate, dried fruit and nuts. Children aged 5 to 15 in England will also get free bus travel on participating local routes throughout August. But immediate help with rising energy bills is not expected, despite forecasts of a sharp rise in the price cap from July. Net migration to the UK has fallen to 171,000. That is the lowest level since 2021. Well, it's halved, driven mainly by a fewer number of non-EU arrivals from the work commitments. Sir Keir Starmer says it shows government delivering on its promise to restore control of Britain's borders. And in a post online this morning, the Prime Minister said there is more to do, promising a skills-based migration system that rewards contribution and reduces reliance on cheap overseas labour. Separate Home Office figures show asylum claims also fell by 12% in the year to March, while the number of asylum seekers in hotels is down by around a third. But that comes as asylum claims remain more than double the level seen just before the pandemic. The Green Party has now announced Chris Kennedy as its candidate for the upcoming Makerfield by-election. That vote will take place on Thursday, the 18th of June, following the resignation of Labour MP Josh Simons. Last night, the Conservatives selected former Wigan Mayor Michael Winstanley as their candidate. Andy Burnham has been selected for Labour. Reform UK has selected Robert Kenyon, while Restore has announced Rebecca Shepherd and Alan Lord Hope for the official Monster Raving Loony Party. Ofcom is warning some major tech firms are still failing to take enough action to protect children online. The regulator says TikTok and YouTube have not committed to significant changes after being asked how they will make children's content safer. New research suggests around 7 in 10 children aged between 11 and 17 have experienced harmful content online. And Ofcom says it is prepared to use its new enforcement powers, including possible fines if platforms fail to comply with online safety duties. That comes as MPs are urging the government to introduce a legal ban on social media for all children under 16. The Education Committee says online harms affecting children are widespread, severe and systemic. It warns platforms cannot be left to self-regulate and says features like infinite scrolling, autoplay and private messaging can put children at risk. MPs also want tougher restrictions on addictive design features and stronger duties on tech companies to prioritise child safety. Unions are warning that visa reforms could push migrant care workers out of the UK and worsen the social care staffing crisis. The TUC says the sector had started to show signs of fragile recovery after years of recruitment and retention problems. But it warns new settlement rules could make life harder, more expensive and less secure for migrant workers. Unions say social care relies heavily on international staff and they're calling for an urgent rethink from the government. And drivers are being warned to expect major congestion on routes over the bank holiday weekend. The RAC says it expects around 19 million leisure trips by car between Friday and Monday. That's around 1 million more than last year. The worst delays are expected on the M1, M5, M6 and M25, with Friday and Saturday likely to be the busiest days. It comes despite soaring fuel prices, with petrol and diesel significantly more expensive than before the Iran conflict began. Those are the latest headlines. More news in half an hour. Now, though, let's get back to Andrew and Miriam.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Rachel Reeves planned to put price caps on essential food items like bread, milk and eggs was not exactly welcomed by the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, who told MPs they were frankly unsustainable.
But later today, the Chancellor will address the House of Commons with her Summer of Savings plan. Here's a snippet of what's to come.
Today, I'm announcing that bus fares for kids this summer, aged between 5 and 15, will be free. So in August, children in England can travel for free on the buses. And this is all about trying to help families with the cost of living. We recognise that things are tough. Inflation has come down, but I recognise that things are still tough for families. And so this summer, when travelling on the bus for kids, it will be free.
Well, Christopher Hope is going to join us now to discuss this. Chopper, where do you think this idea has come from? It seems fairly random, of course, a chance to try to help families in the summer holidays, but not everybody uses the bus. Do you think it will be welcomed?
Yeah, I can't really see how the economic picture allows for this lifting of the eyes from the gloom-laden 2 years we've had of this Labour government to the more upbeat. But it's kind of to be welcomed. And imagine if this Labour government had come in offering this kind of sunny uplands when they first come in, rather than the doom and gloom, which is so much, I think, to set us off on the wrong course. And now we are where we are. I'm in Downing Street here, waiting for Rachel Reeves to leave from 11 Downing Street. She's off to do interviews with economic journalists, but not with GB News today, about her plans for this great British Summer of Savings. She says overnight this summer, I want every family to be able to enjoy themselves. That includes a £100 million fund for free bus travel for children aged 5 to 15 in England in August, only in August, to take them to the seaside maybe, or to a playground somewhere. And tariffs, they're going to be cutting those on chocolate biscuits, nuts, dry fruit imports. Plus, there's a rise for those who are self-employed. We think coming today, in terms of mileage rates, up from 45p a mile. That means a lot to those who, of course, are self-employed. Now, what's happening here is the Chancellor, like the Prime Minister, is in a sense fighting for her job. The wild speculation is that Ed Miliband could be brought in to replace Andy Burnham as the Chancellor if Andy Burnham does challenge the Prime Minister and then becomes Prime Minister. Of course, lots of ifs ahead of that. She told people last night in 11 Downing Street, MPs who went there, I'm determined to continue all through this year. The work of government in the Treasury absolutely continues. She launched a TikTok account last night. Just for Andrew, TikTok Andrew is a modern way that young people communicate, just so you know what that is. But TikTok is what they're doing there.
I've got 90,000 followers on TikTok. I'll have you know, I've got 90,000 followers on TikTok.
So that's what's happening there. They've pulled back from some of the plans they're looking at doing this summer. The idea of compulsory forcing supermarkets to cut prices of some items, that is not happening. On the way here to Downing Street, I bumped into a Treasury Minister who confirmed that is not happening. And of course, the Bank of England Governor has also spoken out against that. Added to that, it's a very busy day in politics. It's the last day before MPs go away for another 10-day break. This time it's their WIT bank holiday break next week. So a lot of information published today, notably, Andrew and Miriam, about Prince Andrew. Now, he was appointed, of course, to be the UK's trade ambassador in 2001. Now, what the government's doing in response to a Liberal Democrat demand in Parliament is to publish why that happened. And we're getting the first evidence of of that now. We're now told that the Queen, the late Queen Elizabeth, was very keen for Andrew to be given a prominent role in the promotion of national interests, and that came from Sir David Wright, who was the then Chief Executive of British Trade International. This is very important because it goes to the heart of why Andrew was given that job. If he was given the job by the Queen, and he obviously is facing, there's investigations about his behaviour when he was in that role, is his role technically a public office or not, because that could have a bearing on whether there's any charges or how any prosecutions and the investigation goes from the police. So the evidence, I think, being put out today by Parliament will inform the police investigation into Andrew.
Tony Blair, of course, made that appointment, and then it was reconfirmed by Gordon Brown and then David Cameron, and it was Cameron's government which actually took the job off of him in 2011. He'd been doing it for 10 years. And my understanding, too, is that the Prince of Wales at the time, who's now our king, thought it was a very bad idea to give him the job in the first place. He thought he'd played too much golf and there'd be too many girls.
Yes, that's what they thought at the time. Of course, he was then he just left the Navy, the Navy, indeed, the Navy. Anyway, he was a helicopter pilot, famously, of course, in the Falklands War. He had gone as high as he could go in the armed forces, and the Queen was clearly keen to give him a new role. But as we are seeing, we're not sure that was the best role for someone like Prince Andrew now, Andrew Mountbatten of Windsor. So that will play out later today. A big document dump in Parliament. All of that playing out live on GB News, and of course, we'll be hearing from the Chancellor later about her attempt to try and get back on the front foot on the economy this summer.
Chris Hope, outside number 10, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Now, Ofcom is warning some major tech firms are still failing to protect children online. I mean, it's déjà vu here. I mean, for God's sake, how many years have we been having this conversation? The regulator says TikTok and YouTube have not committed to significant changes to make children's personalised feeds safer.
Well, the Labour MP for Milton Keynes, Emily Darlington, joins us now. Emily, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Emily,
you for having me. Yes.
Now, obviously, this is extremely concerning for parents and teenagers themselves. What do you think is the problem here? Is it the tech companies at fault, or are Ofcom failing to implement the duties that they have under the law?
I think very much these tech companies think they can do whatever they want, and they maximize for earning money. They don't really think about our children. They don't think about women. They don't think about anybody who may not be having who actually might be either being censored online or being threatened online or being groomed online. And quite frankly, that's just not good enough.
And these two particular companies, TikTok and YouTube, I know there have been a lot of problems with TikTok recently, and the Ofcom really don't know what to do with them. Do you think there's a role for more legislation here or better enforcement? How do we solve this?
I think there's a role for better standards. We know from our great work in the development of children's television, even the streaming functions, they're very much based on real science and others. And these kinds of standards need to apply offline and online. And if we really want to protect our children, and that's about raising the standard of what kind of quality of delivery these companies, these US companies or other companies from other areas are trying to deliver here in the UK. And quite frankly, if you want to have UK customers, you have to follow UK laws. I think we can all agree on that.
So do we need new laws, or does Ofcom need to enforce more vigorously, Emily, what laws are in place already?
It's a bit of both. It's a bit the impunity in which they see UK law and just kind of drag their feet and try and get away with doing as little as possible rather than understanding our legal framework. And it's also about making sure that we have laws that keep up. So we've got chatbots, companion chatbots, which most of us haven't heard of at our age, and not to be ageist here, but if young people have, and language of grooming, and then they even enter into sexual relationships with them. And to do that, they isolate them from their parents and from their friends. And this is something that every single secondary school in this country will have children at their school who have these companion chatbots. And because young people are so much more up with technology than we are, it's happening without us even knowing about it. Parents don't even know that's what their children are doing.
One of the problems here is trying to define what content is harmful or dangerous for children, and it's very difficult to reach agreement on that. And even if it was, it'd be very hard to stop children ever coming across this material. Wouldn't it be easier to follow the Australian route and just put an age restriction on social media of age 16? Of course, that's not a silver bullet either, but coming up to this idea that children should not be exposed to this kind of material at all, whether or not the particular content is harmful.
So, quite frankly, the Australian example just doesn't work. What we know is children are going elsewhere. And in fact, the report out today from Ofcom around TikTok and YouTube shows that even these restrictions to the age of 13 aren't working. So what we need to do is... But that's because currently social media companies are using absolutely no age verification, whereas in Australia it is true that many children still are on these apps, but that's because the legal system hasn't fully enforced it yet. And actually the apps that have kicked kids off, I think 5 million children's accounts have been removed. It's just an iterative process that's not complete. They've also popped up in other areas. There's ways around age verification, but actually these sites do have age verification. And actually that's failing at the moment in the UK. So really what we're looking at is how do you actually make the internet, those spaces where children go, actually okay. So Roblox is one of the major platforms. We probably heard our children talking about it. It's also a major platform for grooming, for adults to reach children. So yes, they're checking that people are 13. What they're not checking is that people who are pretending to be 13 or 35. And that is a significant issue. And then they go over to they take them over to WhatsApp, which is the biggest place where child sexual abuse images are being shared and generated, self-generated child sexual abuse images. There are things that we can do to make sure that there's safeties on phones that give parents the relief that they couldn't actually live stream naked bodies and sending their own images. These are steps that we could take that would be much better than just saying you're banned from YouTube and TikTok when we forget about Roblox, we forget about WhatsApp. We've got to clean up what's happening without infringing on free speech. And what we have is this opposite situation where free speech is being limited when it comes to women's health. There's all these terms that are very medical that are banned for being too sexual. I mean, I don't think anybody of us thinks that endometriosis is a pickup line. So it is not sexualized. So, but those are the kind of terms that are being banned, yet this other activity that is harmful is being allowed to go rife because actually it keeps children on for longer, it keeps adults on for longer and makes them money. And that's just not good enough.
And you make such sensible points, Emily, and these, but nothing seems to change. Why doesn't the government get a grip of it? And I'm not making a political point here. The last government failed too, in my view.
I completely agree. And I think there was this idea that they're too big. The tech bros are too big to take on. But what we saw in Grok when they were producing those nudified images, we said absolutely not in the UK. And in fact, that set the standard for the world. And Grok does not have that functionality for anywhere in the world. Now, the UK again has that opportunity to say, this is what's safe online. This is where you should make it that women's health information is safe online. And the reality is we need to get to a point where that then becomes the global standard. Tech bros are not too big to take on. We've shown that when we took on Elon Musk and banned nudifying through the Grok app.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's the Milton Keynes MP, Emily Darlington.
Thank you very much.
We had a statement from TikTok which said it's very disappointing Ofcom has failed to acknowledge both our long-standing and newer safety features from no direct messaging for under 16s, preset private teen accounts to our recently enhanced age assurance technologies. We'll continue to make ongoing investments in safety for our users.
And a YouTube spokesperson said the platform provides industry-leading, age-appropriate, high-quality experiences for young viewers, working with child safety experts to deliver protections that support millions of families across the UK, adding that its YouTube Kids is safe for children.
There we are.
It's time now.
Time for our great British giveaway, £76,000 and a few other quid. Tax-free, have a lovely time. Here's how you do it.
We're counting down to a spectacular summer. It's your chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in totally tax-free cash. A lump sum that you could have in time to splash out with this summer. Imagine all the things you could do with that cash. Give the garden a glow up, max out on a new motor, or just make sure the coming year is your year. And because it's tax-free, you get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win £76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, net migration is at its lowest level since 2021, but the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says there's more to do. Is this a Conservative victory, really?
We're going to all that and more with Carol and Nigel. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis.
In the car. In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 25 minutes past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So we're going to go back to Christopher Hope, who's in Downing Street, to tell us more about these files that have emerged about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the former Prince Andrew's role as trade ambassador. He is, of course, heavily implicated in the Epstein files because he lied about how close and how long he'd known Jeffrey Epstein. Christopher, what can you tell us?
Well, that's right. We're now looking at images of Rachel Reeves leaving. Rachel Reeves, will you be Chancellor by Christmas? Rachel Reeves, where have you found the money to spend over the summer? Andrew and Miriam, apologies for that. Rachel Reeves leaving there off to a series of engagements about her plans for this great British summer. At the same time as that's happening with Rachel Reeves, and we've seen the PM just moments ago in Downing Street, the government is publishing information right now about the appointment of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor back in 2001 as the UK trade ambassador. Now, we're now told that there was no evidence that any formal due diligence or security checking was done at the time of that appointment. We are now told that the Queen's wish, that this is what was told to the government, is the Duke of Kent should be succeeded in his role by the Duke of York. That's the ambassador on trade. The Duke of Kent is to relinquish his responsibilities around April next year. That fit in very well with the Duke of York's active naval career. The Queen is very keen that the Duke of York should take on a prominent role in the promotion of national interests. No other member of the royal family would be available to succeed the Duke of Kent. The Duke of York's adoption of this role will seem a natural fit. So what we're seeing here is our late Queen Elizabeth II. She told very clearly to the government that it must be her son, her second son, Prince Andrew, taking that role.
Christopher Hope in Downing Street. We've got the broadcast camera and GBNews Senior Political Committee 1980 in the studio. They're going through the papers. What are you talking about, guys?
We were doing sick notes,
weren't we?
We're going
to do sick notes,
yes,
exactly.
Yeah. This is a long overdue area of...
Well, yeah, you know, 11 million of them issued last year, which is astonishing. And this to me smacks of an attempt to get at the people who are claiming benefits for mental health, anxiety and depression. Because we know that the greatest rise in sick notes has been because of those conditions. And so this is what it's all about. So it's obviously designed to slash, benefits generally. But it's interesting because I've just been reading up on sick notes, and apparently 70% of doctors say they just rubber stamp them and hand them out because they can't be bothered to take on the people who are coming in and begging for them. So they just sign them off and give them to them. And once you've got one, you can be off work for months, even years. And what's going to happen now is that if you come in and say you've got a bad back or my knee's hurting, they're going to send you to a physio and you're going to be looked at and you're going to be examined, and if it's not a problem...
Check and see if they're telling a lie.
Yeah, and see if it's a lie. And all the people who are suffering from depression and anxiety, there are forms of depression, and I don't want to make light of this. There are people who are suffering genuine depression. That's not the people I think this is aimed at. It's aimed at the people who are a bit fed up, a little bit anxious. So they're going to be told to go to the gym, to go and do a little bit of exercise, to kind of just, motivate themselves, which I think is a great move because this is just ridiculous. Every week 40,000 people sign on every day.
Yeah. Nigel, is it a bit unfair to blame doctors though, because the doctor-patient relationship is actually really, really important.
Yes.
That trust, that working together. If you think the kind of things that patients have to reveal to their doctors are not welfare officers. They're not there to decide whether or not someone should be in receipt of benefits. And actually, the doctor's priority is to keep a good relationship with their patient.
Which is exactly the point the doctors would make. I mean, where I think this is probably quite a good idea is that you get a sort of different sort of sick note. So at the moment, it's just a pilot scheme to see if it works. But what you would get is a note saying, no, you can stay in work, or there'll be another note saying you should return to work on a future date, and then refer you to specialist services for whatever it might be that you've got wrong with you. It does seem a more sensible way of actually doing the sick note thing, rather than just going in, look, I don't feel very well, here, give me a sick note, and you go out. That if you make doctors think about it a bit more, discuss it with patients, but actually give the patient something to leave with. So you're not saying, I'm not giving you a sick note. What you're saying is, you've got to see the physiotherapist that Carol was talking about.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of these new sick notes, whatever, are going to be given out by what they call social providers. So anyway, it could be pharmacists, it could be nurses.
Social prescribers.
So, exactly. It could be anything. But, I mean, what Miriam just said, I disagree with what you just said there. You said doctors aren't there to decide whether you're on benefits. Well, if they're doling out a sick note that gets you benefits, they are. It is their job to find out whether you're really sick.
But that's because the government has made it employment law has made it their job to determine whether or not you're allowed time off work. Now, but that's not what doctors are trained to do, is it? They're trained to take a history.
You're sick.
Yes, to train a history. Yes, but a doctor is not qualified to know whether or not your work is doable with your condition. And actually, the doctor's job is to support you in getting well, not to have a confrontation about whether or not you deserve benefits.
Maybe the doctor should refer someone who says they've got a mental health condition to a psychiatrist who really can determine if that's the case.
Well, except that some of the... Potentially, but what Nigel's saying, and I completely agree with, is a doctor can say to the patient now, yes, I don't think you're very well, but actually it's not in my remit to determine whether or not you are too sick to work or you should be on benefits. Go along to the welfare office or go along to the social prescriber, and then you don't have this clash, this kind of competing set of different relationships between doctors and patients.
People's feelings again.
It's not. It's
yes,
such
it
a
is.
crucial...
This is
Carol, if you want
let
to
me
go to your
finish, and I'll tell you
doctor...
why I think it is. I think this is going to cost the NHS much more money because you've got a doctor whose job it is to decide if you're ill isn't going to decide if you're ill. He's shunting that on, or she's shunting that on to somebody else, to a whole load of other people.
Well, to a specialist who maybe actually helps you.
And at the moment, the problem is that doctors are accepting almost all of them, which is costing the economy a huge amount. So if, in referring to someone else to make that decision, we cut the number of sick notes by half, then it will more than pay for...
70% of doctors say they never refuse a sick note.
Exactly.
No, but that's shocking. That's because they're
not shocking. It's very normal.
No, it's not, because the reason they're giving is that they don't want the grief of refusing patients. That's not a reason.
I don't know where we're going to get all these specialists who they're going to be referred to.
Well, I mean, the specialists do exist.
But if this many millions of people are claiming sick notes, where are all these professional people they're going to be referred to going to come from?
Clearly, you would have to hire more to actually deal with it. But there would be... you've got to work out the cost of the loss that you're making doing that. But if you can get people off benefits, that should pay for these extra people. And the more important thing is that the GP should be a bit of a clearinghouse. So it's sending you to the right people to deal with whatever your problem is.
That's what you should be doing anyway.
But
that's exactly what you should be doing.
I think we will actually see an instant drop in the number of people asking for sick notes if they know it's no longer up to their GP to sign it off. Because the minute they're told, well, actually, you've got to go to an occupational therapist to make that decision, then I think the number of people who are trying it on will be massively
Or you're going to get more, because they might not be sent straight to an occupational therapist. They might go to a pharmacist, or they might go to a nurse who maybe won't be as strict as a doctor would be.
Well, the doctors aren't strict. We know that. That's the problem. That's why we've got this problem, because the doctors just give it to everybody.
So this is a pilot scheme?
Yes, there's a pilot scheme in several parts of the country.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see the results.
Works. I mean, obviously you've got to do something about sick notes. It's worth trying this. It may not work as well as they think it will. Then they can try something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both. Well, we're now going to head to our 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Hello, good morning. The headlines this hour. The government has released the first batch of files on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's appointment as US trade envoy. Ministers say they found no evidence that formal due diligence or security vetting was carried out when he was appointed in 2001. The Foreign Office has summoned Israel's most senior diplomat in the UK over a video showing Israeli Minister Ben-Gvir taunting detained activists. The UK says his conduct was inflammatory and violated basic standards of dignity. Several British nationals are understood to be among those involved. Ministers are now demanding an explanation from Israeli authorities. Rachel Reeves is due to set out new measures to ease the cost of living squeeze caused by the Iran war. Import tariffs on more than 100 products are being cut, while children in England will get free bus travel during August. Net migration to the UK has fallen to 171,000. That is the lowest level since 2021. New figures show the total has almost halved in a year, driven mainly by fewer non-EU nationals arriving for work. Separate Home Office figures, meanwhile, show the number of asylum seekers housed in hotels has fallen to just under 21,000. And Ofcom is warning some major tech firms are still failing to protect children online. The regulator says TikTok and YouTube have not committed to significant changes to make children's personalised feeds any safer. Those are the latest headlines. A full roundup with the midday news.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up at noon, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily. What's coming up on your show?
Well, we've got the breaking news, royal news, that it was the late Queen that pushed for Prince Andrew, the former Prince Andrew, to be the trade envoy for this country.
I think we sort of knew, really, because the Duke of...
But we've got new documents released now.
Because the Duke of Kent had been doing that job very quietly, under the radar for a long time. Andrew had come out of the Navy. What's he to do? And she thought, perfect job for him.
Can I just say, not a mad idea? In the year 2000, war hero, beloved prince, big name, very across popular. The country. On a trade visit, you can either get the junior minister for paperclips, who probably doesn't meet anyone important at all, or you can sprinkle a bit of royal magic fairy dust on this trip and meet with vice presidents and presidents and cabinet ministers the world over.
And Tom, I went on a trade trip with him when I was on the Telegraph to Singapore. He opened doors everywhere. Singapore money was there. Now, look, it all seemed above board, but he had access because...
But we were aware of his weaknesses, even then. And so too would his mother have been.
I think the real issue here wasn't the initial appointment. It's then what happened. The fact he stayed in that role for a decade, because people will have known after a year or two there will have been reports, and I think we're going to see more of this come out as these files come out about people saying, "Oh, don't let Andrew go here," or "Make sure you keep an eye on him there." And when that stuff started to come forward, perhaps the change should have been then. The initial appointment and the Queen's suggestion, I don't think is a sin.
It was a very popular appointment at the time.
There's a lot of detail in these files that have been released, so we'll be digging through that. And also, of course, talking about the migration figures and big concerns from the Belgian coast.
Yes, Mark White was telling us about that.
Interestingly, despite migrant hotels being shut down, more people are now in Home Office accommodation for asylum than last year.
Just dispersed, sprinkled around. So there you go.
Fascinating, isn't it? And expecting a lot of migrants crossing the Channel this weekend. Nice weather, calm sea.
Yeah, it turns out that politicians are not King Canute. The weather does control all.
Indeed. Well, all that and more coming up at midday. But up next...
Doctors are telling patients, or are they telling patients, to get off their backsides and get to work, as the sick note culture is going to be scrapped in a trial. Very limited trial, I might say.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Hotter weather is on the way for this bank holiday weekend, and it's starting to turn warmer and sunnier in the south today. Cloudier further north, with still some rain to talk about during the next 48 hours. We've got low pressure sitting to the northwest of the UK, high pressure building in from the south. That is going to clear the skies across southern England and South Wales. It'll take some time, so some places not brightening up until early to mid-afternoon. The cloud remains for North Wales, the North Midlands, Northern England, and outbreaks of rain will move through parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Still, it's going to be a warm afternoon for many, despite the cloud further north. It's not going to be chilly, and in the south, temperatures approaching the mid-20s. But we've got more persistent rain heading in for the end of the afternoon, heading into the evening for Northern Ireland into southwest Scotland. A few showers for many other parts of Scotland, a lot of cloud cover, and a keen breeze as well, particularly towards the north and the west. Lighter winds further south, and a beautiful end to the day across Wales, the Midlands, the south of England. Once the sunshine turns up this afternoon in these places, we might not see much cloud around for at least a week or so. Now, the clear skies extend into northern England, parts of southern Scotland overnight, but Northern Ireland, many parts of central and northern Scotland keep the cloud. We've got further outbreaks of rain, mostly confined by the end of the night to the north of Scotland. A mild, if not warm night in places, mid-teens in the south. And then we start off with a lot of sunshine across many parts of England and East Wales. Still some cloud across western fringes and some low cloud at that, so murky around coasts. Outbreaks of rain continue to affect the north and northwest of Scotland, but for much of the rest of the UK it's drier and it's significantly warmer, 28 or 29 in the southeast.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 12. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the government says Britain's broken sick note system, we were just discussing that with Carol and Nigel a moment ago, will have a major overhaul. They're having some pilot schemes focused on getting people back to work rather than doctors simply signing them off.
Well, ministers say the current process has become a tick box exercise with more than 90% of fit notes declaring patients unfit for work.
Let's talk to Ben Gregg, who's the head of welfare at the Centre for Social Justice, the CSJ. Ben, morning to you. I would have said this pilot scheme, whatever we're going to call it, is so long overdue.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. We called for Work Well, which this pilot scheme is sort of rolling out to 4 areas. We called for that to be expanded nationwide last year, and the government has rolled it out in some areas. They've actually already piloted and evaluated it. So this announcement today is welcome. It's a good step, but really it's kind of, as with sort of many announcements that the government tends to do in this area, it's overly cautious and a bit sort of wait and see when really we know how it works. It's really time to roll it out nationwide.
And Ben, what do you think about this claim that doctors are just being lazy or too weak in giving out these sick notes? Would it not be better just to train doctors better or give them more powers to say no?
Yeah, I don't think this is about blaming GPs for this kind of fit note system. Actually, when you ask GPs and when you talk to them, when we've surveyed them, you see that GPs themselves say, we think this is a bad use of our time. We're not prepared for this. We're not trained for it. It shouldn't be us who are managing this kind of does someone return to work, does someone not return to work system. I think actually when the government polled GPs in their call for evidence, 71% said it's a bad use of their time. When we polled GPs, 84% said that they felt society was over-medicalising conditions and they didn't feel that they could fight back against it. Look, ultimately in the current system, what happens is a GP has a 10-minute appointment, someone comes in with a range of complex issues relating to their health, their housing, their debt, relationships, all driving this kind of feeling that they don't want to be at work. And the GP just doesn't have the time to actually tackle all those issues. So they end up faced with a binary choice at the end. Do I send this person back to work or not? And inevitably, they take the kind of less risky option, as it seems to them. So it's not GPs kind of being lazy, it's GPs being overwhelmed. And the idea of moving it off them and into Work Well is about getting it to people who are actually experts, who have the time and capacity to do the work and help people back to work.
How much do you think, Ben, this system has been abused?
That's a good question. I wouldn't, off the top of my head, be able to put a number on it. I think that there are ambiguities around a range of health issues like mental ill health, like sort of musculoskeletal issues that makes it very difficult to kind of delineate when someone is presenting with sort of a genuine and severe condition, and when someone kind of has what you might call sort of bad life syndrome, that sort of there's wider issues going on that means they're coming saying, I've got this health condition, when really what they need is support to tackle those wider issues. And I think that this proposal and our proposal to actually get on with it and roll it out nationwide is about putting it into a system where that can be delineated, where you can actually work out, no, you've got a genuine issue that we can help you with. Here's how we can help you. Here's how we can connect you back to work. And when you can delineate with that kind of more time, a bit more assessment, where kind of it maybe isn't necessarily a health condition, it's about kind of shuffling people back to work and tackling other issues that might be preventing them doing that.
Well, Ben Gregg from the Centre for Social Justice, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It does seem like a good thing to try.
Very good thing. And I don't know why it wasn't done before, because, I mean, Ben gave an honest answer, doesn't know, but, I mean, clearly there is abuse going on in this system. I just think there is. The number of people who are claiming sickness benefit, who are not in work, I just cannot believe that this country's become that sick so quickly.
Absolutely. It's just the barriers to claiming time off work are too low, aren't they? And
they are.
Maybe this will help.
They are.
Well, just a reminder, the Prime Minister has taken to Twitter to say, I promise to restore control to our borders. My government is delivering, as net migration has fallen.
Well, wait and see, Prime Minister, what happens at the weekend with the illegal boats crossing the channel.
It's going to be a nice weekend.
A lot of them. First, we're going to give you the forecast of some of our top weather forecasts of some of our top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're heading away for this bank holiday weekend, well, there's plenty of sunshine across western areas of Europe. In the east, though, there are some thunderstorms as well as hail. But for the Canary Islands, plenty of sunshine, temperatures in the 20s. Similar story for Portugal, Spain, southern France, as well as Italy. But as we head further east towards Greece and Turkey, that's where there's the risk of thunderstorms. There's hail in the mix with these showers as well. But it does look a bit drier into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
I'm not sure that we used to celebrate VE Day or even the end of the Second World War until recent years, and that's a reflection of the fact that the veterans who fought and took part in that campaign and everyone on the home front are themselves disappearing. Yes, it's partly to do with education. There are huge political pressures on what's in education and in the history package, which of course isn't compulsory. When we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, there was a much higher understanding of what past sacrifice meant. And people, of course, were seen far more often in uniform in the streets, and they were coming back from operational service and about to depart. And that all makes a huge difference. Now, of course, war is very distant. It's in the Gulf. It's in Ukraine. It's not impacting us in the same way that it was doing about 20 years ago.
Matthew, let's bring you in at this stage. Do you think Gen Z is ignorant to Britain's war heroes, or do you think it's just a lack of curiosity?
Yeah, I don't think Gen Z are ignorant. They're just a matter of being the way they've been brought up, how they've been brought up, and when they've been brought up. You know, when this generation have been coming through school, there hasn't been the veterans, because the veterans of the Second World War and the First World War have passed away. So it's not in their face as much. The rhetoric that they're getting taught in schools has been influenced a lot in the past sort of 30, 40 years with more left-wing, and I don't mean, I'm not trying to drag this into a political bias, but there is more left-wing rhetoric getting passed out in school.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, and some breaking news now. 11 members of staff have been sacked for inappropriately accessing the medical records of the victims of the 2023 Nottingham stabbings.
Absolutely, Grace. Let's talk to Charlie Peters, who's GB News national reporter. Charlie, this is completely shocking.
Yes, so this relates to the killings by the schizophrenic Valdo Calacane in Nottingham in 2023. The victims, Barnaby Webber and Grace O'Malley Kumar, who were students at the University of Nottingham, and the grandfather, Ian Coates, all three killed by Valdo Calacane. But we're learning now from Nottingham University Hospitals, that NHS trust, that they have dismissed 11 members of staff, but also that 12 have been given final written warnings and 2 were given first written warnings. Now, the trust has informed Nottinghamshire Police and the Information Commissioner's Office of the outcomes of an internal audit. And I can also bring you a short statement we've heard from Emma Webber, that is the mother of Barnaby, or Barney Webber. She has said this is the first public update about the data breaches by staff at the hospital in Nottingham. She says this is nowhere near complete following those 11 dismissals. And she said, again, this only happened because of our insistence of an audit. Now, it had been revealed last year that staff at the hospital had accessed the victims' records without need, which then prompted this internal investigation. This public statutory inquiry, it's day 48 of that public inquiry, it's going on into the attacks, which is also examining the lead up to the attacks and decisions and actions taken since they occurred. That has included investigation and understanding of why staff from this hospital's trust accessed information. Further information and investigations are ongoing into those inappropriate access incidents, and that also includes the files with regards to the surviving victims of the attack. Now, I do have a statement to bring you from Dr. Manjeet Shemar, who's the medical director at the Nottingham University Hospitals Trust. He said, the families of Ian, Grace and Barnaby have had to endure much pain and heartache, and I am truly sorry that the actions of our staff have added to that. To access the medical records of our patients without a legitimate reason is totally unacceptable, and we are doing all we can to identify where and how that has happened. Now, Mr. Shemar is expected to give, Ms. Shemar, I should say, sorry, is expected to give her evidence to the Nottingham inquiry next week. The Trust has said that follow-up activity would take place, and that will involve independent regulators, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and also the GMC, the General Medical Council, will also take place involving in that follow-up assessment.
So 11 sacked, and others have had warnings?
12 have had final written warnings. 2 have had first written warnings. And I should just say that Nottinghamshire Police and also the Information Commissioner's Office have been confirmed that they've been informed of the outcomes of that investigation. But that's now 11 members of staff sacked for inappropriately accessing information of the victims of the Nottingham attacks.
I'm sure there'll be more on that.
Shocking story. Thank you, Charlie.
I'm sure there'll be more on this breaking news story on Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily, but that's it from Miriam and myself.
See you on Monday.
Well, during our time on the show, Rachel Reeves is to stand up in the House of Commons and announce her new special package for the cost of living. It includes things like free bus fares for children. Is that enough?
And indeed price controls in supermarkets. Goodness me. Well, we're also going to be looking at the latest tranche of releases relating to Jeffrey Epstein, this time involving the former Prince Andrew. And new nationalised trains. But has the choice to paint them all with the Union Jack covered up all sorts of cracks? That next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain and cloud across northern areas through today. We'll feel warm wherever you are, but particularly in the south where there will be a bit more sunshine. And there's more of that sunshine to come as we head towards the bank holiday weekend. We've still got this weather front, though, pushing up to the north and east through this afternoon. Outbreaks of rain, relatively light, but there will be quite a lot of cloud around with this weather front as well. When further rain pushes up towards Ireland, Northern Ireland, up through Irish Sea coast, there'll be a lot of cloud this afternoon. In the south and east, it will feel quite warm in the sunshine, temperatures climbing towards the mid-20s, and those temperatures will only rise over the next few days. Now, through this evening, that rain continues to push up across more northwestern areas, so there's still going to be quite a lot of cloud around, particularly across western coast. I think the east will see some clearer spells, but a risk of the odd burst of showery rain. Quite mild wherever you are this evening. 16 or 15 degrees for many northern areas. Still in the 20s, though, as we look further south, where there'll be some late evening sunshine with high pressures starting to build in for many central and southern areas of the UK as those weather fronts push further and further north. So it will become more widely drier as we head into Friday. Still, as I mentioned, quite a lot of cloud up through Irish Sea coast, so a bit of a murky start for some western coasts. Across the east, though, a clear and dry start to the day. Temperatures in the mid-teens for many of us to start the day as well. So a pretty mild night to come Thursday night into Friday morning. Now, the sunshine continues for many central and eastern areas through Friday. In the west, there will be a bit more cloud. I think it will still feel quite bright, actually, though, across parts of Wales and the southwest. And that rain, after a damper start to the day, it does turn drier across far northern areas, but still cooler than elsewhere across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland, but 28 degrees in the southeast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's a totally tax-free £76,543.21 in cash to be won. Cash to spend on anything you like. That's like having over £6,000 extra to spend each month for a whole year. You could spend it on a bucket list holiday, treats for all of the family, or just save it for a rainy day. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number